don't believe normal exists. Nothing is normal except for a procedure. Procedure should be normal. People aren't normal. I don't think there's anything as normal.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of Extraordinary People. Today we're going to delve into Antonio's story. When Antonio was in high school, he started to feel in a very unusual way, and it was just a matter of time before his everyday functioning and his relationships were affected. After a while, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia and emotionally unstable personality disorder. Schizophrenia is a mental disorder that is characterized by episodes of psychosis, so hallucinations, which are typically auditory, delusions, and confused thinking. So it may cause you to hear or think things that do not reflect reality. There are a few distinct subtypes of schizophrenia, making this illness very, very subjective, as Antonio will explain to us. Instead, emotionally unstable personality disorder, also known as borderline, is when people have difficulty in regulating their emotions. So it can cause frequent fluctuations in your mood, in which you can go through intense periods of anxiety or of anger, sadness, or generally confused feelings about the outside world, other people, and oneself. However, in today's interview, the focus is mainly on schizophrenia. But through his hardship, Antonio gained so much awareness into the world of mental health, of which he's extremely grateful for today. And like he says, don't focus on conclusions, but focus on progress. Antonio is honest and very open about his experience, which makes him truly inspiring. He is indeed extraordinary. So let's hear what he has to say.
To start, just like you can introduce yourself and tell us like a bit about your story and what brought you to talk about mental health.
Yeah. So as you know, I'm Antonio Ferreira, 23-year-old student, and also volunteer. So I have personal experience of mental health. So I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and emotionally unstable personality disorder. So that started about around the age of 15. So when I was in high school doing my GCSEs, and it's just it was a build-up of pressure from my GCSEs, from my teachers, from my friends, and also paranoid feeling as well. So, sometimes I feel like, not even sometimes, a lot of the times I feel that everyone was out for me and people were out to get me and people were watching me. And, I'd hear these voices that would tell me to react to that idea that I had of people around me. And yeah, as it kept going, of course, at first, I wasn't aware at all of mental health or mental illnesses or mental disorders. No idea of it. So when I was asked, do I believe I've got a mental illness, I'd say no, of course not. I'm just a child. I'm just, boys will be boys, children will be children. But of course, as you start to become, I guess, more aware of things that aren't correct, I guess, in that sense around you, you start to understand maybe there is something here that does need attention. So anyway, so after my GCSEs, went on to college because I got my GCSEs, went on to college, but first year of college, because I was so stressed out, I was also suffering from pseudo seizures from the stress that I was going through. So all of that put together just created, I guess, this bucket of stress that was really on the brink of tipping over. Mm-hmm. And yeah, then it got to that day where, as I just said, that bucket filled up and, I couldn't handle it no more. So I had made plans to take my life on that day. And then on that day, I called my child adolescent mental health service. And I explained to them, I tried to do it anonymously, but it didn't really work out anonymously. But I explained to them that, something bad was going to happen today, and I'm just making you aware. And they'd ask me, well, what's your name? And I'd be like, no, I can't tell you my name. I'm doing it anonymously. And they would say to me, okay, so what's your date of birth? And at that time, I thought to myself, there's going to be a million people with my date of birth. They're not really going to, get it down to me. But anyway, they were able to find for my date of birth. So they pulled me out of college, took me to the service. Then from the service, I attempted to pull out a knife and take my life. And then from there, ended up hospitalized for my mental health on section for about 2 years. So that was from 16 to 18. During that time, I guess in hospital, that's what really I guess, shaped my ambition to firstly want to study psychology, and secondly, want to raise awareness of mental illness. Because one, the people in there were actually really inspiring themselves. Like even although they were patients, they were very inspiring themselves. And then secondly as well, I had no one, I guess, relatable to that I could look to and be like, yeah, and find hope in. So I thought to myself, if no one's yet stood up and said this isn't right, then I'll be that person to stand up and, shed light on everyone else that follows me. And then, so coming out of hospital at 18, I had to, go back to college to gain my enough points to go back to university and follow my dream of education and so on. So I'd done so. And then in my first year of university, and this is actually quite a funny story, first year of university, because I was studying psychology, you get lectures, they'll tell you your degree is not enough, career is competitive, you need the experience outside of your degree. So I thought, you know what, I might as well just sign up to a mental health charity, right? Just volunteer just to get some experience for my degree. Never had any plans of how far I would go or anything. I just thought I'm just going to sign up and put it on my CV as, I did something here and something there, just to be in front of competition. First opportunity I got, it was a talk to give to the on a induction staff day for the charity. I done that, and I guess the reception I received from that, the feedback I received from that, that's what I guess created the snowball effect, because from there just more opportunities came, and then I was suggested to be a media volunteer, and then from media volunteer that's when I discovered I love being in front of a camera. And just from there, I guess things just picked up, it just kept going. And it was almost as if something I hadn't planned for was actually already planned for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's how I came about, I guess, turning my personal experience into volunteering and campaigning.
It's actually really interesting because I've never heard of anyone who talks, especially about schizophrenia, because it's very stigmatized, and like with the clarity you speak about it, it's really interesting and admirable. Does it bother you when people like positively relabel your illness, in the sense of, okay, it brought you a lot of pain, but then it also brought you to like understand what you want to do? Like, do you hear that a lot, and does it bother you?
Yeah, no, I do hear that a lot, and I guess for some people it would bother them, but for me personally, no, it doesn't, because it's the truth, isn't it? Like, although I went through that pain in the long run has brought me a lot more opportunities than it brought me pain at that moment, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, because if I didn't go through what I had gone through, I don't think I'd be so aware of mental illness. I think I'd be one of those ignorant people about, mental health and, not understand it as much. And I think sometimes incentives are put in front of you for a reason, whether it comes with hardship or, any trial tribulation. There's always a positive in anything you go through. And as I said, like, not many people talk about schizophrenia. Now, I made that choice to do so, taking on any sort of, judgment or whatever that may come from it, because it's like, at the end of the day, if everyone just sits there and accepts that, no one's going to talk about schizophrenia, then how do we change that? If no one's going to stand up and start it off, how will it ever change? So I guess it was, I don't find it annoying. I do hear it a lot, but I think it's the truth, and I can't hide from the truth. And I always tell people, so even with my mental illness, I won't look back at it and feel like, maybe, it was a difficult time, but I won't look back at it as a thing that ruined me. If anything, it's made me a much better person, much more understanding and, resilient, and I guess endurance, it's built on my endurance. So I don't think I can ever complain for something like that. I think if I think outside of the box, where the box is the pain I went through, and I think outside the box, that pain is nothing to how many opportunities I'm getting now and how much joy and positivity I have around me.
That's really amazing to hear, to be honest.
And
And so, like, since schizophrenia is not really known, maybe you can explain like how you experience it. Of course, it's a spectrum, and people experience it quite differently, I guess. But maybe you said you talked about suicidal thoughts and attempt. How are the two connected for you?
yeah, so my schizophrenia is undifferentiated schizophrenia, this is something I just learned recently. So there's different um subcategories of schizophrenia, which I've just come to learn as well. So, you have the paranoid schizophrenia, the catastrophic schizophrenia. So I have undifferentiated schizophrenia, which from my knowledge, knowing that I'm not a medical expert, but from my knowledge, means that my schizophrenia does not fit in only one category because it takes, I guess, aspects from each one. So for me, it was very similar to depression. I'd isolate myself, I'd have low mood, suicidal thoughts. But then also you have obviously, of course, the general symptoms of schizophrenia. So, I had auditory hallucinations, delusions. So, I had the wrong perception of reality. Like, as I said, thinking that people were out to get me. And the element of paranoia as well, and as well, just giving myself extra, like, unhealthy expectations, or like just unhealthy expectations that might have not been realistic, or giving myself unhealthy stresses, as I mentioned, that even caused my pseudo seizures.
And how would you say it affected, like you said, you experienced it at first during school, during your GCSEs, so like did it have an impact on like your relationship if you isolated yourself? I guess like it impacted your relationships with others and your school.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. All kinds of relationships, to be honest. Like, because before I went into hostel and in college, my first year of college, it was as if, and this is how my friends described it to me. It was just like, one day Antonio was in the classroom, and the next day Antonio was gone, and no one knew where he was. People made up their own sort of, I guess, stories to fit what was going on. Like, one day he's here, and the rest of the year he's not here. No one ever was like, where did he go? Sort of thing. And teachers couldn't give them an explanation and so on. But also, I guess, the majority of friends, it created a bad relationship as well, because where people didn't have understanding, as I didn't as well, or awareness of such situations, they would make their own assumptions from the very little that they already know or seen of any sort of mental illness, that they're crazy, spontaneous, a threat, and so on. So that, I guess, ruined a lot of relationships. And in that happening, that kind of took an effect on me and the good relationships I still had with other friends, because it was like that those bad experiences, I ended up generalizing even to the people who still wanted to be around me. And that in a way kind of pushed them away. But again, I think all of that I can only blame to everyone's lack of understanding, because now that, as I'm raising awareness and, opening up and sharing my story, a lot of those friends have now messaged me to be like, we didn't, like, wow, I didn't know, I had no idea that you was going through this, like, and then followed with messages of encouragement and praise. So, so I don't personally hold any grudges. Like, at one point I did, of course, but I don't hold any grudges, because I think, I always believe that there's two sides to a story, and that it's unfair to them as well. But I mean, even as a person myself, where 2 years in hostel, you can imagine that I didn't go into hostel straight away wanting to get better. I sort of went into hostel, thinking whatever it is, where it is, I don't care no more, sort of thing. So that as well takes an effect on the relationships around you, because it's like, if they can't see you wanting to get better, then one thing I learned is that while I have my life and whatever pain I'm going through in my life, everyone knows, like, you yourself, you have your own life, and you can't pause your life just to follow my life, sort of thing. You've got to carry on with your life as well. And as I said, there's always two sides to a story.
What would you say was the hardest thing about it, about the whole illness?
I think, that's a good question. The hardest thing about it, I think, probably changing my view on it, I think. Because, I went from being ignorant about it to not accept hating it, to change all those energies, those negative energies into something positive, as I'll use it to better myself. I'll use it to inspire others. I'll use it as, a beacon of hope. I'll use it to, empower me and give me more positive, more positive view on
what paths did you take to heal? Like what concrete things really helped you?
Gaining back my interests. So, football, sports, exercise, education. Like I said, because I was 16 to 18 in hostel, I missed a lot of my education. So just getting back into education, that was a big step for me, because going into university at 21, 22, I always felt a bit anxious, because it's like, people are going to ask, and, people are going to, but it was like, at the end of the day, everyone judges. It's normal human instinct. But when I talk, you can prove them wrong, and that's the best feeling either way. And yeah, I think just finding my interests, keeping myself busy, and just, I guess, even the mental health campaigning as well, that gives me a sense of value. So yeah, all these things. And if we're going to talk like even smaller things that people take for granted, we're talking like even diet, the things you eat, how you sleep, the people you surround yourself with, that makes a big difference. The energies that surround you, sort of thing, because it's what they say, you are your surroundings. So not neglecting any negative feelings, that's the main thing as well. Not neglecting any negative feelings.
In terms of stigma, like why do you think there's so much stigma around mental illnesses, and in particular schizophrenia?
Simply because I think because of media, if talking about some of the most influential platforms, it's media, right? And like unless you already have some sort of indirect or direct experience of mental illness, you might know better, because you'll do things just, I guess, subconsciously, like read up on it, or attend workshops or attend whatever. But that's people that have already some sort of acknowledgement of mental illness. But for those who don't, and that's the majority, they get off media. And when you're watching things like even simple things like The Joker, and all these other sort of films and whatever, those portray schizophrenia, not even just schizophrenia, but severe mental illnesses as spontaneous, violent, dangerous. And like, when you think of it as a box, right? And you put 1p in a box. Say this is like a A3 size box, right? And you put 1p in a box. That's how much knowledge you know about mental illness, right? But the rest of that space is empty. The rest of that space can only be filled with your assumptions from that one penny. So if all I know is the Joker, and I know what the Joker does is manipulative and so on, the rest of that box is going to be filled with assumptions that are very similar to that one penny that's in that box, right?
No, definitely, I agree. And it's crazy, the link, like the misconception between associating mental illnesses or psychosis and schizophrenia to violence and crime and aggression. The association is super enlarged in people's mind, and there's such a misconception. And also, I agree, there is a lack of education, and in my opinion, also a lack of like a human side to what, like, now people are talking more about mental health, right? But there's little like showing that there's a person behind the mental illness, and like that it's not as scary and as abstract as people think. So that's what I really like also about what you do, that you like, it's clear that you're a guy of attending university, and that your illness does not define you, or that you cannot be limited to that.
Yeah, of course. And sometimes I feel as though, like, awareness is not enough. And if I think you'll be aware of that quote that I said in one of my videos, where I said, I can be aware it's raining today, but if I don't bring a jacket, that awareness means nothing.
And also I heard that you talk a lot about like the aspect of race in mental health, and how like the two intersect. How do you think the two intersect?
Yeah, they definitely intersect, right? And in the sense that or many avenues. So, you know, if we're talking about like, you know, minority communities, right? Minority ethnic communities. We, as minority ethnic communities, are very used to being very private. So we won't seek help until it's reached crisis point and help has to be given, right? And that's the first mistake I think that we all make, is wait until we've reached crisis point and help has to be given to us, rather than us just going and asking for help at a point where, you know, maybe someone out of a minority ethnic community could have asked as easy. And then two, I think we've, as a community, already got enough stigma already. And now adding mental illness to it, you know, it gives you even more stigma and stereotypes. And I guess in our assumption, the less chance of being accepted, if that makes sense. You know, if you asked me before if I'd ever tell anyone that I'm young, black, and schizophrenic, no, definitely not, because young already has a stereotype, black already has a stereotype. Now schizophrenic, all three, there's no way I would have done that. But you know, the power of it is making it sound like it's okay. You know?
Like, to close off, what would do you have any words or like advice or anything you want to say to people who are going through something similar to you, or anything you want to say about what you took away from this experience?
Yeah, no, definitely. The one thing I'd want to say is, you know, a lot of people look to rely or hope on conclusions, but I don't think that is the best way to go about it. I think people should rely and hope on progress. You know, every day, every hour that we're still here doing something, adding something to the world is progress. And that's what someone should focus, or everyone should focus on, you know, not, oh, I don't know if I reach the end of this road, or, you know, what happens at the end of this road, that's conclusion. But every day you're still questioning when you're getting that, and you're still still going, that's progress. And that's why I say you should really focus and rely and hope on progress. I don't think happiness is ever reached. Go in and out of happiness, right? That's what it is. And every day you're here and you're working to it, that is happiness, and that's progress. So that's what I would say, and that will give more hope and light.